Hello, everybody. Let's put a face on. Thank you. Hey, everybody. This is Beth, and I have Joanne Banko with me today. So we're about to get ready to do a project. Joanne is trying to find the link, and I am trying to send it to her for the YouTube.
Why don't you just go ahead and go live, and I'll find it on YouTube once it goes live.
Okay, we are live, so we should be on. So see if you can see it.
Are we live on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay. I don't see you live on YouTube, but let's try to see if it is. Let me go into YouTube and do a double check here. So are you able to pull up your...
Yeah, so I can pull it up on YouTube that you're here.
Okay. So are you able to pull up? I think I see it. All right, I see it. Okay.
All right.
So let me click share because we got people waiting over on another YouTube channel. So hang tight, everybody. We're trying to get everybody in here.
So I'll just share with what's going on in the store here. So we've been nice and busy today. And here's Kim. Yay! We've been nice and busy today. So today we're going to be working on the luminaire with Joanne Banko. And Kim is going to be our Vanna. So today we're going to be working on the luminaire with Joanne Banko. And Kim is going to be our Vanna.
Great. And well, let's see if we get some people start to join us over here, because what we have is we have two and well, let's see if two people waiting. Start to join us over here.
All right, I'm going to put my camera in front of the luminaire, and actually I'll have everybody give a shout out. Hey, Sweet Time Quilting customers, I have Joanne Banko live here, so if everybody wants to give her a shout out, say hi. Hello. So that she knows somebody's here. Let's see. So once we started, he is going to be demonstrating the luminaire, and you guys are welcome to ask questions and ask her what she's doing.
Oh wait, I have to get this camera reset. I want to be able to show the top and the bottom.
I don't see any comments coming yet. Is there? Maybe I've got to go somewhere else.
Okay, that's pretty close.
There we go. Hey, Bonnie. Welcome. Alberta, Canada.
Yay! That's cool.
Yeah. Very cool. So we're here at Sweet Time Quilting with our grand opening. We did a ribbon cutting this morning at 9 a.m. We have a very funny video of that on our Facebook site. Anything I can do to help you, Joanne?
I'm trying to get everybody here on YouTube.
I've got Bonnie and Joanne Hayes from Ontario, Canada. Woohoo! Our Canada people represented. Where would you like us to go in the luminaire? Where would you like us to start setting up? You want us to be in the design center? Can you hear me, Joanne?
Seems like she's not hearing you.
Beth, if you're talking to me, I can barely hear you. I'm trying to get people from the other YouTube channel into the new one.
Thank you. I don't know why you can't hear me.
There was still a mermaid pattern. Advocate mermaid.
Kim, can you just kind of entertain for a couple minutes while I try to get these people over here into the
All
new
right, so
YouTube?
Kim, why don't you just show some of the things that you've been doing today, and we can do it right on.
Can they hear?
You're gonna have to talk loud for them to hear you. So, if you guys want to, you have a bell. Hey, everybody, if I can have your attention real quick. If I can just real quick. So, of course, we love having technical difficulties here.
Kim, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Joanne. Can you hear me?
Can you just entertain for a few minutes on your screen?
Yeah, I can show the projector and the camera, or I can show my shoes. Talk about that.
But meanwhile, Kim is just going to do a demonstration on the luminaire right there. So we do have the TV there so that you can watch that screen. So you don't have
That'd be great.
to be on top of Kim. And then Kim's just going to talk very loud. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay. So while we're waiting for Joanne, what I've done previously, well, I'll just start this over again. Go home. I go to embroidery. I've saved this into, wait, let me just start again. Let's go to Design Center. I'm going to scan the hoop. Just so we can see what's in the hoop, we're going to scan the hoop as an image, touch scan, and say OK. I'm going to scan the hoop. Just so we can see what's in the hoop, we're going to scan the hoop as an image, touch scan, and say OK. Nope. Scanning. Nope, you can have the snowman, but I'm just doing this as a scan. This is how I did my blouse with the lettering on the pleats. Nope. Because I wasn't sure, because the pleats were a little bit crooked and each one was a little bit different, so I had to do them individually. It does. It's perfect for that. So it's thinking, it's checking out the hoop. The hoop, by the way, is a tea towel that says don't flip out, with a little spatula on it. So it's thinking, it's checking out the hoop. The hoop, by the way, towel that says don't flip out. And here's our, can we see that on the screen? So here's our scan. It's a little bit light, so this button right here, I can tap that and darken that up a little bit. And here's our, and then I'm going, I think it's in this memory. Let me see. Here I can tap that. Maybe not. No, it's not yet. And then, so I'm just going to go to next. Dang it. Maybe not. No. You know what? I started in the wrong place. I'm sorry. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to write in the text menu. I'm going to write, you know what? I'm going to write in the text menu. I'm going to write more pancakes. Okay, eat more pancakes. I'm going to set that. And there's our scan. And now you can see that it's kind of, it's kind of big across the middle. So I'm going to go to edit, go to rotate, rotate it 90 degrees. And then I can move it with my finger, or I can move it using the arrows too. Actually, that's not too bad. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller by touching size. See how it's getting smaller? And now it's going to fit right in that little spot. And I'm going to scooch it over just a little bit more. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to take it over to embroidery. And now when I touch the projector button right here, it's going to project that image right down onto the stripe. And I'll be able to show you that. So now that's what it looks like on the screen. And this is what it looks like on the bed of the machine. Can you see it on through the camera? And then we can move it. It's not very clear. Oh, that's better. Okay. So now you can see how you can exactly place things, even if you've hooped it crooked or you have irregular items. I did that on this blouse. Let's see, where's the camera here? Okay, there it is. So on this blouse, I put the lyrics to the Beatles song Blackbird, and these are pleats, individual pleats, and each one is a little different because they're a little bit gathered in between and at the top and the bottom, so each one is different. But I was able to bring in those letters, make them larger, smaller, stretch them out, squish them together a little bit more, and place those exactly where I wanted them because I had that great projector. Also, I was able to place these paisleys and snuggle them up right together without overlapping, without getting them, too smashed together. This one I really like because I was able to overlap the little circles from this one with the circles from this one right there. And over here, I was able to get them so precise that I could put these little vines in between the dots on that other paisley. So now you can really see the precision available on this machine. I like to tell people it's like somebody telling you now we're going to take away your backup camera. It's like, no, don't take away my projector. Don't take away my backup camera. So how are we doing, Joanne? Did we lose Joanne? Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, John, Pamela, Angela, Shirley, Pat. Oh, there's Linda. Hello, Michelle. Connie.
They're trying to hook it up on Facebook. For some reason, the links aren't connecting.
Some of the people are on one YouTube channel, and we're on another YouTube channel.
So right here, if like you wanted to move that up a little bit, you can just go ahead and
Yeah, go ahead. You move it.
Oh,
Just a
okay.
little bit at a time.
Yeah.
See how it's scooching now.
To get it on the line.
And you can still rotate it too a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
I know.
You doing all right? Now I don't even see you. Oh. We've got tons of people on. We've got tons of people here. Okay.
I need to make
Yeah.
And now I don't understand. Okay, I don't know why the speaker's not working like that. I can't find out what I'm doing wrong. But you're gonna do all the talking. So we're good. Because you, we can hear fine. Okay. Okay. And I typed and wrote that you were coming soon, so I checked that on. Okay? All right. Okay, bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Joanne is joining us soon. She is changing people from one YouTube channel to another. So we had gotten the wrong link to begin with. So stay with us and we'll be right there. Meanwhile, we're showing the screen on the Luminaire machine. We have Kim in front of it and she was just showing about placement. So we'll be right with you.
So I'll buy.
Usually it'll be on YouTube later. And me? This will be on YouTube later.
And then it takes the usable.
Okay, nice talking to you. Thank you. Good luck. Yep, good luck with all your stuff. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know. I haven't, oh, there it is. Didn't think to ask.
I use. Right.
Is that a tea towel? Yeah, I just bought it at the dollar store. Oh, yeah? Yeah, a couple, oh, well, actually before COVID. They were like 50 cents. But they had stripes, that's what I was looking for, something with stripes on it. I love the caramel country.
Thank you very much.
I had the XP1, and that's the coolest thing. It is. We're not on audio volume. But no, the audio is not working. Oh, gosh. So you came all the way from Ohio. Wow.
There was a lot of melon ice cream down
Yes. Well, our tulips are so confused. We had beautiful weather, and we were out there with our flip-flops on. The next day, we had 5 inches of snow. The tulips are like, I don't know, should we go or not? So it's still, but lately it's been more like 50s, 60s, things like that.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Joanne. Can you
Hi,
hear
hi,
me?
hi.
Joanne, can you hear me? It's Kim.
I'm hoping that we had over, just to catch everybody up, we had over 35 people on the first YouTube link and that one wasn't working. So I've been chatting with them and trying to get them moved over here to the new one. I hope some of you are here. Apologize for the glitches. I did my best to try to get you over here and hopefully you made it. So thanks to Kim for playing around a little bit on the Dream Machine screen on the Luminaire screen while we tried to get this dream going here. All right. Are we good now? Is everybody hearing me and seeing me? Can you let me know if you're... Can you hear me? No? Okay. Okay, everybody else is hearing me in YouTube, so I don't know why you're not hearing me, but they are hearing me in YouTube because I'm getting yes, yes from the YouTube crowd here.
Joanne, it's Kim. Can you hear me?
All right, and everybody in StreamYard is saying yes as well. So I'm not sure what's going now. Okay, don't forget there is a delay, so you might be experiencing the delay. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going, and if there's some reason where we need to stop, then I'm going to count on you to give me a thumbs down. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going here. Okay. Now, I don't know if you want to pull me up on full screen or if you want to leave it half and half. That's entirely up to you. I'm going to say hi to a few people that I see here. So I am seeing the comments come through on my end here. And I see lots of our friends here today. So many of you are joining on both YouTube and Facebook. I see a lot on YouTube, so that's great because that was the one we were a little bit a little bit concerned about. And I see a lot of friends here. So we appreciate you being here. I don't know how many of you got here from Beth's email. It'd be fun to know how many of you are here because you got an email from Sweet Time Quilting and Quilts and Lace. Uh, they are hearing background noise. I'm saying some people are hearing the background noise from the store. So I don't know if that can be, changed at all on your end, Beth, but if you can do something about that, that would be great. And, but they're saying, I'm getting comments that there is a lot of noise there. And I see, okay, Lisa got an email. Linda got an email from Beth and Lisa got one from me. So thanks for all of my Let's Go Sew friends showing up here. And I did send an email yesterday and then a new refreshed one here today. So when we had all those glitches. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to show you today, I'm going to show you a few samples on the screen, but Quilts and Lace is a quilt shop in Melbourne, Florida, and Beth Sweet is the owner, and she is celebrating her grand opening of her second store, which is in Sebastian, Florida. So I'd love to know if anybody here in the chat is anywhere near either of those areas. That would be interesting. Beth and I go pretty far back. We met originally at one of the brother conventions, and then in 2019, Beth had me come on board, literally on board, when we did a quilt cruise, and we had a blast. We had over 20 people join us on that cruise. Maybe some of you are here today. It was a wonderful trip. So we sewed for 3 days, sewed, embroidered, quilted. And then we also had days where we had excursions. So it was a lot of fun. But Beth recently sent me this lovely panel with these beautiful little owls on it. And I think the name of this panel fabric is called Owl Always Love You. There's all kinds of different fun puns that you can do with this. But when I first saw her show this on her show, I thought, wow, wouldn't that be fun to play around with in my design center, for one thing? So I'd love to know how many of you have my design center capability. It is something that is on multiple brother machines. And yes, it is on the high-end machines, but don't be concerned. I will be sharing some other options for you that you'll find on other machines and give you some ideas for embellishing a panel like this. Really, no matter what machine you have. But like I said, when I saw this, I thought, wow, this is just ideal for creating something special and adding embellishments to this block. So I'm going to show you my finished sample. Most of you have been online a lot over these last couple years, and we all kind of are feeling like virtual is here to stay. And no, it doesn't substitute for live and in person, but it's probably the next best thing. And if we had the opportunity to see everything up close and touch it and feel it, that would certainly be the best. But I'm hoping you'll be able to see at least a little bit of this. So here is my finished panel. Bring it back so you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to pull it up kind of close to the camera because hopefully you're going to be able to see a little more of the detail there. I'm going to hold it a little sideways, and I want you to kind of take a look at where the owl's belly is and where the eyes are. What I've done is I've added more batting in those areas to create a trapunto effect. And then also, if you look close, I did what I like to call micro stippling. And micro stippling is just a stipple stitch that is really, really close together. And when you do a really close together stitch like that, it tends to really push down the batting in the area where those stitches are. And when you have one area that's pushed down and another area that's pushed out, you get a really nice trapunto effect. So I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. Now, I will tell you that I'm a pretty poor stippler. And so I really appreciate the automatic stippling that we can get by using features in the Luminaire and features in my design center. But so, think about this though. If you don't have those features, you can definitely learn to stipple. I think anybody can learn to stipple. Just on a little side note, I don't know how many of you have tried free motion quilting. How many of you have tried free motion quilting? Let me know. And how many of you have felt like a failure at it? I will readily admit that I have taken multiple classes and I have not accomplished much. However, I think the reasoning why I failed at that was because most of those classes were showing me how to do feathers and how to do freeform flowers and how to, follow a specific pattern. And to me, it's almost like trying to start out, learning how to spell with using the biggest words in the dictionary. We all need to start at step one. So step one in free motion quilting would be stippling. And like I said, I truly believe anybody can do this. So on a regular machine, if you don't have the capability that I'm going to show here today, all you would need to do in order to set up for free motion stippling would be to lower your feed dogs or cover your feed dogs. Most machines have the ability for you to flip a button and it will actually make the feed dogs on your machine go below and stay below. And then you would need some sort of a free motion foot. And there are a variety of different ones, but a very inexpensive, very basic one is just simply called a darning foot. And if you go to the shop, like go to Visit Quilts and Lace or your local sewing machine dealership and ask for a darning foot, they should know exactly what you mean. And that will have some sort of like a spring-loaded mechanism on it. So that what happens is as you're doing a straight stitch without the feed dogs, you become the mover and shaker. So you just simply take that fabric while it's under the needle and swirl it around. And with stipple quilting, if you leave space in between, and if you look, there's space in between those stitches, then it's called stippling. If you happen to cross over one stitch over another, you just rename it and you call it meandering, and nobody knows the difference. And you just say, I was meandering, not stippling, and it's all okay. So Kim is showing there a free motion quilting foot. Depending on your machine, it may already come with it. So check that. But I highly encourage you, if you don't have this capability, to please give it a try. Take a scrap of fabric, layer it with some batting, layer it with some backing, and just go for it. The more you do it, the better you get. And the more you forgive yourself and say it doesn't have to be perfect, I think the more fun you will have. So that is definitely one of the features that you that you will find there. The other feature that I put on this particular panel is some additional decorative stitches. Now, I did do this in embroidery mode, but we will be showing, sewing mode as well here today. And when you're in sewing mode, we all have decorative stitches. They are, plentiful in most machines. And even if you have just something simple like feather stitches, you can consider using those to embellish border areas. And in particular, when you have fabric that is plain, this is plain ordinary muslin, or you have a small pre-printed fabric, I think it's ideal for adding decorative stitches because you're able to tie in the color scheme with whatever else you have in your block or in your pre-printed panel, and bring in those additional colors. Maybe you have decorative stitches that mimic some of the patterns that you find in your panel, and you could just do multiple or single, depending on the size you have for your decorative stitches, rows on that plain fabric and add that as an extra embellishment. So far we've talked about embellishing with stipple stitches. We've talked about embellishing with trapunto. We've talked about embellishing with decorative stitches, and we will talk about a few more things as we go along here. Okay. So I wanted to show you that, and I think I'm going to go ahead and show you just a couple more samples while I have on the big screen here. So here is an example of another idea for stitching those borders, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did this. But this sample here, if you look close, you will see 2 rows of the exact same decorative stitch. And I call this shadow stitching. I don't know if that's the right word, but when I was playing around with the idea, I thought that's kind of what it is. It's like shadowing, where you have one lighter and one darker. So this is just I picked a light blue and a dark blue and stitch those rows with just a little bit of space in between. So again, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, but I want to show you another couple samples. And while I'm showing you these, if you have a Brother machine, I am a Brother ambassador, so those are the machines I use. See if any of these stitches look reminiscent to you. Are you catching these stitches and saying, "Oh yeah, I've seen that one." Maybe you've never used it. So consider looking up your decorative menu. There's another one there, just simple swirls. Again, I picked a darker pink and a lighter pink, and this technique gives you the chance to play around with your decorative stitches as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch my camera over to the machine. Just give me a second to do that, and I'm checking in with the comments just for a minute before I do that. And Quilts and Lace is telling me they're going to scan, embroider, quilt, or use fill patterns, and they're going to be using the Luminaire. So they're doing that right in the store there, live at the same time that we are doing it here over in my space. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to switch my camera over to the machine, and hopefully you can see the screen there. Can anybody give me a yes, good to go if you're seeing the screen? I see from the position that they have their cameras, it's a little bit off, so hopefully that looks good. Can anybody tell me if that looks good? I could use some some comments here. Okay, I see one. I'm going to go ahead with it then. All right. So I'm going to tell you right off the bat today, I am using a mouse, and I have a mouse plugged into my machine. I'm working on a Luminaire that has been upgraded, so it's the same as the Luminaire 2. And if you can see my mouse cursor swirling around there, I'm using that instead of my finger or instead of the stylus. If you've done any work in my design center and you've tried using the the stylus, you may find that it's a little bit more cumbersome because of the tip. And, you know, when they designed this machine, they designed it to be used in multiple ways. So use whatever works for you. I know Beth at the shop there has a special stylus that you can use in place of this one that has a finer tip. But I'm going to just be using the mouse today. So instead of my finger. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go directly to my design center. And you can see I'm starting off with a blank slate. Well, I've already got my fabric hooped, and you'll see that in a minute. And it is already in. I'm using the 10 5/8 by 10 5/8 hoop. I'm a big fan of square hoops. I'm a big fan of adding whatever hoops you have in your capability to your machine. I'm going to click on shapes here for a second and show you that in my design center, you can actually select any one of the available hoops for your machine. So take a look at that. That shows me the full menu of hoops that I can use with this particular Brother model. That will vary from machine to machine, obviously. And some of these hoops come with the machine when you purchase it right in the box. Other hoops are add-on. So I'm using the 10 5/8 by 10 5/8 hoop today. And I'm just going to go ahead and click right on that. And you'll see what that does is it brings up the frame area in the screen so that I know if I'm absolutely positive that's the hoop I want to use, I'm able to design for that space. I love that feature because how many times have some of you hooped up your fabric, selected your design or created your design, and then oops, the machine tells you, sorry, we're not working with that one because you just don't have the right size. So this basically gives me a fence to stay inside, and I already know that my panel will fit in there, but that is a good way to test it. So, and make sure that you're working with the right thing. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to click on the scanning possibilities here. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on image scan. And then I'm going to click scan here on the screen. And it's going to tell me that the frame is going to move. So basically what that tells me is to make sure I am out of the way. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to switch over so that you can see what's going on there. My machine is actually using the camera-like function, and it is taking a literal picture of the fabric in my hoop. And while it's scanning, it takes depending on the size hoop, it takes a few seconds. You can see that what I did is I took that panel piece, that beautiful owl, and I literally cut it out, and then I added borders on each side. I chose just something plain today so that I could show you, adding into those plain areas as well. But if you take a look, you might also see, zoom in just a little bit, you might see that I drew some blue lines using one of my all-time favorite markers here, the blue ink wash away marker. And I actually probably could have colored that in even just a little bit darker. And you may be wondering, what is the method to my madness here? Why did I do that? Well, you're going to see in a second that I'm going to want to stay within that block area for the stippling that I put into this design. And because the fabric color here in the block and the fabric color here on my border are somewhat similar, it's a little bit hard for the machine to see that really well and have it show up as an image on the screen. So I'm already scanned in. I'm going to move over now right back to here, and voila, I'm going to zoom out so you can see that whole screen. You can now see my scanned in image. So I'm just going to take my mouse here. I'm going to show you what happens if I click on this little leaf here. That makes that image totally disappear. If I click on the leaf that's at the far right hand end, it will bring it back at its lowest resolution. And as I keep clicking that, it will make it darker and darker and darker until you're seeing that almost as realistic as it is in the actual hoop. So when I do that, I'm able to, more clearly see a defined area. However, I'm going to be working with adding shapes to this design in just a second here. So in order for me to actually see the shapes on top of the colored image, I'm going to go ahead and make that just a little more pale. And I don't know if there's anybody there at Quilts and Lace monitoring the chat. But if you are and you can answer any of some of the questions that come through, that would be great. But I see, I'll try to keep tabs on it myself. I see Shirley's asking, can you create a box around the owl and choose no sew? Yes, you absolutely can. You're going to see when I do this today that there's probably 4 different ways you could do this. I'm going to show one way, but if you have another way that works for you, feel free to use that. So let's start for a minute by talking about what if we wanted to actually draw around certain shapes in this panel. We can do that. So we can free form draw around any area we want. We just simply select the stitch that we want, or the type of drawing that we want. I'm going to do free form. We could do closed lines. We could do straight lines. We could do straight lines that link together, but I'm going to use free form. I'm going to go ahead and change that to a triple straight stitch. And I'm going to change it to a red color so that hopefully you can see that a little bit better. And by simply having my little drawing tool activated here, I can simply go around and literally draw around that. Now, keep in mind, I am not up really close to this because I am, working a little bit of a distance from the camera, but I'm going to increase that size just a little bit more so you can see. If I use the hand here, that allows me to maneuver that around, and you can see the lines that I've drawn. And I haven't really drawn them very well, have I? Well, that's something that definitely takes practice. But the smoother your motion is, I'm going to go ahead and just do another line here so that you can see. The smoother your motion is, the better your lines are. So just a few tips on this. If you do want to try this method, I'm going to tell you that the best way that I've found is to go slow, but not to stop. Because if you stop, it will create a jerk in the line. So if you just keep going and just, take practice, see how I get smoother and smoother as I go along. The beauty of this is that we have an undo button. And so if you don't like what you did here, no problem. You have not created anything yet, and there will be no issue with those lines. We can simply undo, 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 and get rid of all of those. So I'm going to go back to my 200% size, and I can move this around a little bit so I can get that in better view. And so now I'm going to show you how we might use shapes in order to add accents and add embellishment to those areas instead of doing freehand drawing. And you're going to see very obviously when I click a shape, we're going to start with, we're just going to do a line. This would be line only. This would be fill only. This would be a fill stitch with a line outside of it. I'm going to start with this oval, and I want to do a line only. So I'm going to click OK, and it automatically brings up that shape. So that's how I created that little puffed area of the belly on the owl. All I'm going to do now is decrease that size. So I've got my sizing keys here. And again, we can make that wider, shorter, longer, taller, whatever we need. I'm going to just shrink that down, move it into place. And I'm going to go a little bit smaller here. I just want to fit into that little area there that would be, you know, where his little belly is. Okay, I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to add a few more shapes here. I added circle shapes to the eye. So I'm going to go back to my shapes key. I'm going to select the circle. Again, I just want a line. And again, I'm going to need to shrink that down. So far, so good, I hope. So this takes a little bit of time in designing. You can do as little or as much as you want. I'm going to bring that into that eyeball area. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. Now I could go back and I'm going to make that a little paler too. So you see how my shapes show up a little bit when that is a little more pale on the screen. I'm going to click OK. I could go and get another circle, but I've also got copy and paste feature here. So I'm just going to copy and paste that same size circle, move it around in the eye area. Again, if I need to move that, I can either click rotate or size. Both of them will give me the option for moving that and tweaking that just a little bit. Obviously, if we click on size, we can add size to that as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to activate those shapes into stitches by simply clicking on each one. Oh, they're already activated. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch to drawing in some shapes with the fill tool. So I'm going to switch to the fill tool. I'm going to go back into shapes and I'm going to get a flower shape. And this is what I kind of want to encourage you to do. Oh, I don't mean that's not the one I wanted. There's another flower here that's a little closer to the flowers that are on my actual fabric. So I'm going to pick that one. And like I said, what I'd like to encourage you to do is see before you start doing the drawing freehand, if you can find a shape that might mimic something already in your design or be something that could accent those areas very easily. So I'm going to take this one, I'm going to bring it down. Oop, that's not what I meant to do. I want to select that, touch my select key and click on that flower. Then I can, oh, you know what? I got to undo because those two got locked together. So let me just undo that and move that down because that's what I wanted to do. So I'm going to go now, I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. And I found that if I just rotate that about 10 degrees, you see how that mimics that shape there? So again, I could draw that on each and every one, and I won't take the time to do that, but I want to go in now and I want to create some fill with a circle shape. So I'm going to actually click on the fill this time. And now you see a whole different look here. I'm going to resize that. And again, I'm mimicking something that is already in my pre-printed panel. And I'm going to bring that just a little bigger. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to drag that into place. And I'm going to go back to the fill stitch and I'm going to select a different color. And I just want that in a standard fill. And I'm going to click right on it and that will, whoop, that's not what I meant to do. That happens a lot where you forget to click on the right icon. I always want to click on the bucket fill when I want to change one of those regions. Okay, so now how in the world did I get that stippling stitch to form on there? Well, once again, there are multiple ways that you can do this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it in a very, very easy way. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on next. And I'm going to preview all the stitches that I've already generated here. And you can see, of course, that I've missed a few, but that's okay because we're just doing a quick sample today. And I'm going to go ahead and go directly to embroidery. What I can do in the embroidery mode now is go to edit and tell the machine that I would like to turn those shapes that I've created into just a simple stamp. So I can put that into memory and it will stay in the stamp there. Before I leave here, I'm going to go ahead and put my design into memory so that I can bring that back up when I'm ready to stitch it. All right, I am ready now to go back to my design center. I've saved it so I can get it back when I need it. And now when I go into shapes, which is right here, there's the shape that I created. You can see some of the other ones that I created that are very, very similar. And that's how I completed my project. But I'm going to just select this one. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to rescan my image so that I have those stitches on top of it. So it's doing a little scan here. And I'm seeing, checking the comments here. And I see Linda saying to design in Design Center takes time. Yes, it does take time. Are we capable of saving to a USB and returning to Design Center? Great question, Linda. You can actually save in the various stages and come back to it either in the built-in memory or on a USB. So yes, that way you can come back and finish up when you have more time to pay attention to it. Because it is, you are digitizing, you are designing. So you can see again, my shapes are right where they were before because I haven't moved anything. So what I want to do now is I want to create a stipple fill in just the area of the panel. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and turn all of those outlines into stitches. So I'm going to pick a color there. I'm going to click on those two eyes and I'm going to increase the size on here so you can see that a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and click on that little belly area and then I'm going to change the stitch here to another color. Let's do red so that you could see it. And you can see I have now created those stitches. Again, I'm going to go ahead and just so that you can see what I've done there. And I've got that all ready now to add my stipple fill. So I'm going to just move this up just a little bit. So I've got that into full view. And hopefully you can see my blue lines there. That's what's going to give me the perimeter of where I want that to fall. Now, if I click on fill now and I click on stipple fill, I'm going to pick another color here. I'm going to go with a light color. Now, when I use this bucket tool, it's going to fill in all of that area that is outside and around the shapes that I've created. Okay, so now I want to get rid of some of this. So I'm going to select that. And, oh, actually, you know what? Let me back up here. I'm going to undo because there is an easier way to do that. I'm going to go ahead and go here and get the fill shape. I'm going to click on that square. And now I'm going to resize that. All right, hang on here. All right, I want that done with my lines. Make sure all of those lines are set. Because I undid that accidentally. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back to that square shape with the fill. And let's see here. I want to change that size. I've got a little bit of a glitch here. So let me go back because I've missed something here. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to clear that. I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to go ahead and rescan that in. So give me just a minute here to rescan that in. Sometimes we start clicking too fast and skip and miss here. So let's get that scanned in. And while I'm talking about that, I will tell you the batting that I used was just a layer of quilted dream batting, which Beth has at her store. And I did a single layer under the entire piece that I have in the hoop. And when I go to do the trapunto, what I'll do is I'll just simply take 2 more layers and place that underneath the hoop in the area of the owl, so that I can have that area puff out a little bit. And then I'll simply just trim that away from the outside edges. All right, so let me get back here and get that stamp. So I'm basically just returning to where I was before. Click OK. I'm going to go ahead and set those stitches. I'll use that color. We'll use that color. We'll say OK. And we're going to click on all of those shapes that I have. All right. Let me blow that up just a little bit here. Okay. And let me just get that moved into position. All right. Now I'm going to be able to go to my shape here. And somehow I am I am not getting what I want here. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to do it in a different way. Okay, we can take this and we can take this brush and we could literally fill in these areas. So that's another way that we can do that with the stippling. We could stipple all around the areas that we want, and then keep ourselves from the areas where we don't want it to go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead so that we can move forward into the next thing that I want to show you. I'm going to go back home. And I'm going to go into embroidery mode. I'm going to pull up the piece that I have actually memorized from before. I'm going to set that. And I am going to go to scan in that same image now, so that I can show you how I added those decorative stitches. So give it just a second to scan in. All right, there it is. And I can go ahead and move that with editing. I can just drag that around, and and that will match where my image is. So we have, camera capability in multiple places on our machine. So I'm going to bring you into preview there and show you what that looks like a little bit bigger. Okay. And then let me see if I can add my stipple stitching that I did when I did it correctly. Somehow I'm missing the boat on that. But there's my stipple stitching. I'm going to go ahead and go to edit. I'm going to move that. And I'm going to move that right into position. So hopefully I'm proving to you that it can be done, even though somehow I got off track in there. All right, so that'll form right on top of there. And again, let's magnify that so you can see that all of my stippling is outside of all of my shapes. All right, so now I'm not done yet. I've still got these spaces here where I would like to add some additional decorative stitch touches. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to touch add, and I'm going to go into what is known as the decorative stitch patterns for embroidery mode. And I'm going to show you just a few quick things here that you can do, including that shadow embroidery. So I'm going to find those leaves, and my leaves were down here. I think it was 169. Let's find that right there. Okay, I'm going to pick that leaf. I'm going to touch set. And I don't know how many of you have played around with decorative stitches in embroidery mode, but this is a feature that's been found on many Brother machines for quite some time now. If we go to edit mode, we can actually choose the size key, choose size recalculation, and we can increase the size of that decorative stitch dramatically. So I'm going to blow that up to a really large size. That's adding stitches in where it needs to add them so that I'm going to get a really beautiful stitch pattern. I'm going to move this over now into the area that would be my border, and I'm going to move it up, and I can line it up with the edge of my pattern there with my panel. And when I click OK and I go now to this beautiful key that we have here for repeat function, I can now add another leaf right below that, perfectly spaced. I can go ahead and I can move that, line it up. If I need to resize it, I can go ahead and go to edit and resize that as well. So when I created that shadow stitching, all I did was I went ahead and created a border like that. We could do that on both sides, but I'm just going to show you one side. Created that border and then went back to my repeat pattern key and selected the second position here so that I could add a second one on the side. Now I want that to be in a position where it's just slightly to the left or right, whichever way you want to do it. So I need to move this one row so that it's closer to the other row. And how do I do that? I simply cut them apart. We've actually got a cutting tool here. I'm going to cut that apart, and now I can move that over. Oh, I want to select the other one. Let me select the other one. And I can move that over so that it will just shadow the first one. And when I stitch that out in two colors, I've got something very, very unique and very, very special and a very nice accent to that. So let's talk for a minute about what would you do. I'm going to go ahead and take the hoop off the machine. What would you do if you wanted to add some embellishment to this and you didn't have those features that I just showed you in my design center? Well, how about buttons for the eyes? Wouldn't that be fun? You could also use buttons for flower centers. Today we have so many different novelty buttons that you can purchase that you could dress up a whole panel just by adding buttons to it. What about trim? You could add trim. You could add, kind of a fluffy yarn to any of the areas and mimic those feathers. You could also add just straight line stitching in the areas where you see straight lines. You could use, more stippling in other areas. And the sky is really the limit for doing that. There are just multiple ways that you can add accents. I think if you go in the trim section and take your panel with you, you'll start to find some inspiration for things that you can add and make that really, really look special. All right, I don't know if I can get back to the screen where everybody else is, but I'm going to try and check in with everybody at Quilts and Lace and see what's going on there. I don't know if it's if they've had to mute because of noise, but anybody there at Quilts and Lace? If you don't come up on screen, then I'll just keep going here, because what I wanted to talk about next is on the sewing side of the machine, using a walking foot. I'm going to go ahead and bring my sample back here. Using a walking foot or a digital dual feed foot to add additional quilting. So what I've done here is I've quilted outside the border. Remember, I've got a layer of batting there, and I want to make sure that I've got all of my layers quilted together. So I'm going to do what we all like to do. I'm going to flip around and let you see the back side. Okay, so I've got a small piece here, a little quilting. I don't really need a lot of extra quilting. So I just used a walking foot to add some additional lines here and a quilt around my panel. Hey Beth, I see that you're there.
Yes,
How's things
hello.
going? How's things going on your end?
I did just fine. Can you hear me, Joanne?
I can hear you just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just move right into showing some of the walking feet. Okay.
Okay, very good. And I brought some over so Kim can share on the camera those. We're so busy. We're showing machines, which is
Okay,
lovely,
great.
but we're all
Well,
getting pulled away.
I'm going to do a real quick little overview on the screen, and then I'll switch back over to my machine, and I'll do a little bit of quilting on another panel that I have set up. But before I go there, I just want to tell a little bit more about how I finished this. I know I'm speaking to quilters here in the shop, so I know a lot of you are very, very experienced. But this is just a fun little way to get some practice with a panel. Sure, you could use these to make an entire quilt or a larger wall hanging if you want, but they're so much fun to just take one and isolate it and then add some extra accents to it and turn it into a little wall hang. So I just want to walk you through how I did it. I finished my panel, did all of the embroidery. And that was all done just on the layer of the panel and the batting. And then I went ahead and added a layer of fabric as a backing. So I chose this uh, beautiful leaf print. And then I used my walking feet to quilt some additional lines here, some rows here to quilt right on the edge of the border there. And then I did a really nifty technique. A friend of mine taught me this, where you take little squares and you fold them into a triangle, and you butt them right up on the edge, the raw edge of your layer there at the top, and then add your binding. And I just added straight strips and mitered the corners to give a nice, neat finish. And that then anchored those little triangles in there so that you could take a dowel rod, just a simple dowel rod, slip it under those two triangles, and use that as your hanging mechanism. How nifty is that? That is just like so simple and so much fun. So another thing that I'm going to show this really close is if you can see what I did on the, give the camera a second to focus there. What I did on the binding is, I think you could see it. It is a serpentine stitch. So just another tip for you today is if you're sewing binding, I'd love to hear how many of you are beautiful binders. I know people that love to make quilts. They love every step along the way. When it comes to binding, they're looking for the exit. They want somebody else to do that part. And I know, Beth, you've done some great tutorials on that. Visit your quilt shop and let them show you some different ways. But one of my ways of doing it is I like to build in as much forgiveness as possible into all my projects. So by selecting that serpentine stitch, I'm going to try in the back and see if you can see it. I think you can see it. It's a wavy stitch. I forgot to clip a thread here too. So we all find that on some of our projects, don't we? But that wavy stitch allows me to stitch from the front side and be sure that I catch all of the binding that I've wrapped around to the back side with that stitch, because it's wider than a straight stitch. So I encourage you to experiment with either that stitch or, again, the feather stitch is another one I've used a lot for this, even a zigzag or any type of stitch that will walk from side to side. And especially if it has, a way for you to line it up in the center, you can finish your binding really quick and really easy and be sure that it is caught in every place where it needs to be caught. So I'll be, showing you a little bit of more of that accuracy too. So I see a few. Robin, she's used the serpentine stitch to quilt. Bonnie finishes her binding with serpentine or feather stitch. So great, I got some kindred spirits here. So all right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move over to my machine. And Beth, you're going to need to give me just a minute here. I'm going to go ahead and change the camera, but I have it set up for embroidery. So I'm going to need to get that set up for sewing. And you can certainly watch me as I do that. And as I do that, I'm going to actually show you some different feet. So what do I have here as the first foot to show you? It is the digital dual feed foot, also known as the Move It foot. And what makes this foot so unique is that it is belt driven. So right here in this area, I'll light that up just a little bit better for you. In this area, we have a rubber belt. And when this foot is plugged into the back port on the machine, and how do you know if your machine uses a Move It foot? It has to have a port on the back of the machine. If you don't have that place for it to plug in, then you know you don't have that capability. I'm going to be showing you another option, so stay tuned. But if you have that, when that is plugged into the machine, it now can be controlled with the computer controls on the machine. And what that means is you can set this foot so that the belt moves a little faster or a little slower. And I'm not going to give you a full tutorial on the Move It foot today. I'll paste a link into the comments here for a whole program that I did on that. And I encourage you to watch that on my Let's Go Sew website. But basically, to put it really simply, when this belt is set to move a little faster by selecting a higher number on the control on the screen, it helps ease your fabric in. So if you've ever, quilted or sewn a binding or sewn fabrics that move away from one another, if you've ever wanted to ease that layer in a little bit so that that layer is not, moving on you, by setting that belt to go a little faster, it will do that. On the opposite end, an end we don't use very often, but on the opposite end, we can set that to a lower number, and that would be in the minus range on the screen. So that belt moves slower. And when it moves slower, it literally creates a pulling effect. And that is known in sewing as taut sewing. And it's probably more common when you're doing garments. If you've ever sewn silks and silkies, and you've had to literally pull from both ends while you're sewing, that mechanism will do that for you. Now, the beauty of this foot is not only that it's dual controlled here, is that it comes with multiple accessories. In fact, there's even a new updated foot that I don't happen to have here, but I know Beth has it there. And that new updated foot is shallower in this area right here. And if you have the opportunity to purchase that foot, you will find that it comes in really handy when you're using this foot on bulkier projects or thicker layers. This one works fine on a thin layer, and it's great for a lot of projects. But having that foot with a higher space here allows for thicknesses to go under that foot more freely and more smoothly. So if you work with thicker fabrics, you will find that foot to be a big benefit. But back to the options for this foot, these front feet just snap right off, and there are multiples available. So I've actually got the open toe one that I'm going to work with here in just a minute, but I want to show you a few more options. If you have either one of the styles of these feet, you can use a 1/4 inch foot so that you can use that for your piecing. I'm going to go ahead and set that down so you can see that. It's got an edge guide so that when you're in straight sewing mode, it will perfectly align the raw edge of your fabric with this edge guide, and you will get a perfect 1/4 inch stitch. It can substitute for the 1/4 inch foot that we're used to using for traditional patchwork. And again, comes in really handy, especially when you're working with fabrics that need a little bit more care and a little bit more coaxing. Another foot that you'll find, and check your feet that came with your machine, because sometimes you'll have multiples right in your package, is the closed toe foot. And the closed toe foot is really good for giving a little bit more control and a little bit more pressure in the area where your fabric is under the needle. So I tend to use this one more for sewing. I tend to use the open toe one more for quilting. And then there is the stitch in the ditch accessory. And that is, again, another one of my absolute favorites. I'm going to be showing you this in a minute. This one allows us to guide right along the ditch or any other seam or any area on the quilt that we want to have our stitching form right in that center spot. That stitch in the ditch foot will do that for us. You may also have a couching foot. I know Kim, who's there at the Sebastian store, has done fabulous, phenomenal things with couching, and this foot allows us to do couching by just putting yarn right through that little hole that's on the foot. And again, all of these snap right on. Now you've also got options for quilt guides. So I'm just going to lay these on here for a second. The quilt guides are another option, and these actually attach right to this area on the foot so that you can have even spacing. So if I slide that right in there, I can evenly space stitches to the right or to the left of my stitching that's already on my fabric. Comes in really, really handy. All right, so we'll be using that walking foot in just a minute, but let's talk for just a minute here about what I would call a traditional walking foot. So I've got two of them here. Now, the beauty of the traditional walking foot is a little bit, you're not being able to see that real good. So the traditional walking foot, you can find a walking foot for virtually every machine that exists in the modern sewing world. So you can do very similar things to what I've done with this Move It foot with a walking foot if you don't have Move It foot capability. Now, here you see again, I've got two different versions. I've got a closed toe and I've got an open toe. Once again, I will tell you that I use the closed toe more for actual sewing, and I use the open toe more for quilting. And why is that? Well, whenever we have a closed toe area, we have a little bit more pressure on the fabric. And the thinner your fabric is, or the lighter it is, the more slippery it is, the more control you need right underneath the needle. And having that area closed in will put that amount of extra pressure on there for you. However, when we're doing quilting, we very often want to see right where we're going. We're following a line, or we're following a seam, or we're outlining a pattern. And having that open toe area gives you maximum visibility. Once again, there is an option available for giving you the ability to stitch either from the right or from the left and create evenly spaced lines with your walking foot. And in this case, it just simply slips right into a hole in the back of the foot. So that's another option. It doesn't come standard with a walking foot, but it can be purchased and used to add to your foot. Now, recently we got a new walking foot, and it's the new kid in town. If you don't have any walking feet at all, like you've never gotten a walking foot yet, and you're looking to purchase one do-it-all foot, I highly recommend the new, what's called a dynamic walking foot. And this foot has a variety of special features. First of all, it gives you the ability to do both open toe, which I have here, or closed toe. Comes in one package. So this simply snaps off, pops off, this pops on. So instead of me having to get 2 feet, I get 2 feet in one foot with that extra sole plate that just snaps right on. This foot is also designed for you to be able to use decorative stitches. Now there are some limitations to it, and with the instructions it shows you exactly what decorative stitches you can use with this and what's recommended. But that really helps you expand your repertoire, because using other than a straight stitch gives you more decorative capabilities. That's also one of the things we love about the digital dual feed foot, is it gives us a variety of different decorative capabilities, which again you'll see in a minute. So if you're looking for a walking foot that will fill all your needs, this is a great option. It also, for me personally, takes the place of a dual feed foot at times where I want a little bit more space underneath my foot. I want a little bit more visibility, and I don't want to switch to that bigger foot. This will give me a little bit more visibility because just the overall foot is smaller, and I have a little bit more area that I can see on my fabric. This is a low shank foot, so that's important to keep in mind. If we're adding it to a machine such as the Luminaire, a Luminaire is a high shank, so we need an adapter, and there's a little adapter that you can get, and when that slips in there and you screw that on the machine, it puts that foot on to the perfect height. So any machines that have a high shank absolutely need this adapter used with this foot. So again, I'll paste in a minute the link for you, and that will give you a whole tutorial on all of those feet, very detailed. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just move the camera a little bit. I'm going to tell the machine I want to switch over to sewing, and when I do that, it's just going to literally park the arm. My embroidery arm is now all the way over to the left. Get my handy dandy screwdriver, and I'm going to take off my embroidery foot. There.
That I can't.
Very quick and easy to switch from embroidery to sewing and not have to do a lot of fuss. Normally that screw stays right in there. You don't even have to take the screw all the way out, but I unscrewed it a little too much. So I'm going to now attach the Move It foot. You don't need any adapter for this foot. Just screws right on. Okay, like that. And then I want to always make sure that I plug it into the back. Now, I'd love to know if anybody here has used a Move It foot and forgotten to plug that in the back. If you don't plug it in, it is not going to work for you. So I'm going to move over to my screen here, and I want to show you in settings what it would look like when we have the dual feed foot plugged in. This is now the screen that I would go to where I would be able to change. If you take a look at all these different numbers, I can scroll through. 00 means that belt is just moving normally, but you heard me talk about before the ability to make that belt move faster or slower. So if I want that belt to move faster and I need to ease my fabric in a little bit, I can simply experiment with all of the different settings here. A lot of times I like it to actually ease a little bit. So I'm going to set that for plus 03. But if I needed to do the stretching effect, that's where I would go into the minus range. So I've already tested that, and I found 3 works really good for the layers of fabric and batting that I have there. All right, so now I'm going to get this threaded up. I'm going to put some bright orange thread in there.
So that's why I said, yeah, this one's 415. This is
I'm going to use that automatic needle threader.
this is the baby one. And it's just 5 by 7. So it's smaller than that.
And I'm going to go ahead and pull my bobbin thread up. A
Magnet,
little bit of a short tail there.
one here, one there, and then 2 on each side. So it's a different set. One all the way around. Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Grab that.
That's okay, I promise. Yeah, then you would be using that.
All right. So I've got a panel already prepared here. And before I stitch on that, I want to go back to the screen and I want to show you what happened when I plugged that dual feed foot in is it literally turned off some of the stitches on my machine. So it's telling me this would not be a good choice. So we have eliminated that choice for you. And I love it when the machine helps me from making a mistake. But if I go ahead and I go down to different stitches, I've got the ability to use a whole lot in the stitch menu because all of these are not grayed out. They're still lit up. It means that I can choose any one of those. And I talked before about using the serpentine stitch. There's the serpentine stitch there. There's the feather stitch. Some of the ones that I like to use for quilting are stitches that will stitch on both sides of your seam. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick this one today. This is another one of my all-time favorites. And we're getting a few people that say if you could mute the sound from the shop, that would be great. So you might want to try doing that. All right, so I have selected that stitch. Of course, I can play with the width and the length. Generally, when I do quilting with any form of a decorative stitch on the fabric, I will increase my length a little bit. That just spaces out your stitches, gives it a little more breathing room. And in sewing, the thicker the fabric, the longer the stitch length needs to be. The thinner the fabric, the shorter it needs to be, or it might just be on average, but that'll give you a better stitch quality. I'm going to increase the width just a little bit. All right, so I am set and good to go here. I'm going to slide that back over so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to zoom in a little bit there. And I'm going to go ahead and use, actually, I'm going to snap this foot off, and I want to use my stitch in the ditch foot. And this one actually doesn't have a slot for me to slide it through. So I'm going to send the needle down, send the needle up. And I'm just going to pull that underneath so my tail is underneath. And this would be an ideal stitch for using to stitch on both sides of the seam. So I'm going to anchor two places at once. I'm going to anchor part of my panel, and I'm going to anchor part of my border there. And I think I've got my foot control plugged in here, so I'm going to go ahead and use the foot control. I'm going to start with a tie-off stitch, so it'll knot off at the beginning. And I'm just going to, while I'm stitching, I'm going to keep my eye on that guide. And as long as that guide falls along the ditch there, I'm going to get a perfect stitch on both sides. And again, remember, you can experiment with some scrap pieces with the layers of fabric and batting that you're going to use, so that if you need to ease that in a little bit, you can do that. If you need to make an adjustment and you have a different setting on a dual feed, you can do that as well. I could also turn on my camera. I can use my laser. Let me go ahead and pop my laser on here so you can just see what I'm talking about. And I can line that up so that it's right there along the line. Unfortunately, it doesn't really show up really well a lot of times on the machine when you've got a camera on it as well. Let me go and just turn the light down on my machine for a minute so that you can hopefully see that. Show you that again there. So you see that green light there? That is actually showing where my laser is, and that helps extend the line from my stitch in the ditch foot. And of course, there are many, many other things that we can do here, but this would be something that would be very common on many different machine models. Go ahead and tie that off. And cut it. All right, so you can see there how I was able to light on there. I was able to stitch right along that edge perfectly, neatly, without any puckering, without any pulling. I just got a perfect stitch quality there. So I showed you before these samples with the decorative stitching. I'm getting ready to wrap up here a little bit. I just want to give you a few more ideas. And these again were done in embroidery mode. But if you check your machine, you're going to see that you've got and I don't know if anybody can hear me there, but if you could mute yourself in the shop, that would be great because we're getting a little bit of background noise. So I want to show just another idea. Again, no matter what machine you have, if you are wanting to create decorative borders and you want to do it again on plain fabric, what I recommend you do is take your fabric piece and prepare it for the stitching before you actually piece your block. So if I wanted to do decorative stitching on this area here and I'm not doing it in embroidery mode, I'm going to stabilize this strip of fabric. You can do it with lightweight interfacing like I did here, or you may want to consider using one of my favorite fabric stiffeners is this one here. And this will just make your fabric temporarily feel almost paper-like. And you can do your decorative stitches and have them form properly and nicely on there without having distortion. But you have to have your fabric stabilized if you're going to do rows of decorative stitching. So I can, of course, leave that foot on, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take this one off, and I'm going to switch to the open toe foot here. And again, you can see that by having that open area, I'm going to be able to see really clearly in here. Remember, you could be doing this with another foot, whatever foot your machine would call for decorative stitching. You could do lots of different decorative stitch options. That would be the end foot on the Brother machines. You could also consider using the dynamic walking foot if you have that. But for decorative stitching, probably my big tip of the day is whatever you do, you don't want to use a standard walking foot with decorative stitches. A standard walking foot, open toe or closed toe, they are designed to sew forward only. You do some back stitching, but they're not designed to sew with a lot of movement with the stitch from side to side and forward to backward. Your stitches will end up distorted and you will absolutely wear out the foot. So remember, straight stitch and zigzag is pretty much your limitation with a regular foot, but a regular walking foot. But that doesn't mean you can't do stitching in rows like I did. So once I've got that lined up there with the center, I can go ahead now and I can choose another stitch. I'll go ahead and pick another stitch here on my menu. And I'm just going to pick a star stitch, which happens to be, it happens to be grayed out. So thank you, machine, for telling me I can't use that one. Let me find another stitch that will work here. Let's go ahead and let's use our favorite feather stitch. And I'm going to simply stitch right along that line. And you could use multiple different patterns, but what I'm doing here, the whole idea is to create a band of decoratively stitched fabric. I'm not going to go ahead and go all the way down, so we'll stop that one. By creating multiple rows, I can use the edge of my foot as a guide and just guide that along the previous one and do rows on both sides. When I do this technique, I like to work from the center out. Another option then, again, depending on what foot I'm using, would be to add in this quilt guide. And if I slip that in, I could position that so that my spacing would be equal from the line that I've previously stitched. So lots and lots and lots of different ways to add embellishments to your panels, to add embellishments to all of your quilt projects using either all or some of the techniques that I've showed you here today. So let me get back over here to my regular camera. And let me check questions real quick. Do we have any questions? Shirley wants to know, how do you keep the large decorative stitches parallel to each other? Shirley, that is the $1 million question. If you could follow up with that comment and let me know what machine you have, I could probably give you a little bit better answer for that. I will tell you, if you have a machine with the ability to set the grid lines on it, I'll go ahead and show you that while we're at it. Let me go back over to the machine. Okay, and we'll just get this over onto the screen. If you have the ability to use the guideline marker and use the grid function there, when you select that, it brings up a beautiful large grid on your fabric. I'm going to scoot back over so that you can see it there. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. So when you have that grid there, what it helps you do is keep aligned with whatever your previous lines of stitching, and having that grid gives you multiple parallel lines. So it just helps you keep from moving the fabric. When you stitch out those large multiple stitches, they have so much movement that without you even knowing it, you start to steer your fabric at a little bit of an angle. And if you can see that, as soon as I went in an angle, my grid lines went in an angle. So when you have your grid lines consistently straight, you'll have a much better success keeping those large decorative stitches straight as well. All right, let's see. She has the dream machine. So, all right, Shirley, then that means you don't have that grid function. However, you do have the laser function so that you can use that to help keep you parallel. The next best thing to those grids would be to literally draw in lines. So let's take this for an example. If I wanted to do the large pattern decorative stitches that have all that movement, and I wanted to keep that straight, I have one center line that's going to help me. But if I draw another line perfectly, parallel on both sides, again, what that's going to help me do is keep from accidentally sliding that fabric a little bit sideways. And the motion of the stitches creates that movement a little bit. So having another line here and another line here means that I can consistently keep that level. It's almost like when you're driving on the highway. If you've ever been on a road where they didn't have the lines on the side, it's a little easier to start drifting. Having those additional lines on the side will help keep you on the straight and narrow. All right, let's see. Let me scroll through and see if I missed any questions. Go back up a little bit. All right. I really appreciate everybody here hanging out with us and, rolling through all of the glitches that we had. Maybe we'll be able to edit this video a little bit and have it up on YouTube so that it's a little bit more precise and kind of pull out some of those parts that were a little bit rocky in the road. All right. I think I pretty much caught the questions. Hi, Alan. Good to see you. If I missed any questions, please pop them in again here so we can get those answered before we close the show out. So, Beth, do you want to come back on and say hello and see if you have any questions there?
Hello. Yes. So
You're muted.
No, I am muted.
Okay.
You're good.
No, I'm very, very silent. Good. Oh, you finished it. Excellent.
So again, has anybody tried this little nifty method with creating those little corner pieces? so that all you need is a little dowel rod there. Makes it really easy. Really easy.
Okay, let me put my camera.
There's Shirley helper lines. That's exactly it. Give it a try. You will find it really makes a difference.
So we were showing another machine over there.
Okay, good.
Do we have all the questions kind of answered? Do you think?
I think so.
Go back.
I think so. Yep. I'm pretty much seeing the ones that are coming through here. I don't know what you're seeing. I don't have Facebook pulled up, so I don't know if you have any on Facebook, but
No, we did it all on YouTube. All right.
okay,
Well,
very
Joanne,
good.
thank you so much for taking the time to, do all the work in advance and then all the time here today.
It was wonderful to be with you. Congratulations on your grand opening there.
My son just arrived, so we already put him to work.
Great.
He walked out with a Still Air. Yep. So somebody just walked out with Still Air, so he helped them exit with that. And what was I going to say? We had 90. Is it 90? Something like 90 people have been here today. So that's
Great. Wow, that's wonderful. Wonderful. I'm just seeing a couple more comments come in. Pat says she uses the corner pieces often. So good for you. Well, I'm still here. Let me show just a few optional hoops. So again, the hoop that I was using is the 10 5/8 by 10 5/8. The square hoops, they don't look square, but the actual stitch area in each one of them is a square, is a perfect square. Of course, I know, Beth, you sell the dime magnetic hoops, which I'm a big fan of those for quilt blocks. They work wonderful. This is an 8-inch hoop. I use this one a lot. I also have a larger one, but the 8-inch hoop is a really, really nice size for lots of different blocks. Another one of my favorites.
We'll have the dime educator here tomorrow. So
Yes, that's right. Great.
On the Brother 10 needle.
Another one of my favorites is a 6-inch hoop. This is a 6-inch square. It's an optional hoop, but comes in handy again for, if you're only doing a really small area on a panel, on a block. The smaller the hoop, the better the hold and the less excess fabric you need or stabilizer all around there. So another one of my favorites is the 9.5 by 9.5. So, I have them all and they all come in handy. So whatever size you need.
Oh, and it turned out so cute.
It did come out cute. I had a little glitch in my demonstration there where I missed something. So I'll go back and I'll do another little video shot that you can post somewhere, doing it the right way, because I got just a little crossed up and didn't want to waste time going backwards. So
it's hard when you're under pressure.
Yeah, we had a little rocky start, so that kind of throws you off.
Oh, that threw me off too, I tell you. And we practiced this, Joanne. We did.
All right. Linda says great tips. Thank you.
Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you,
Linda brought some
Robin.
beautiful flowers for me to share here. So she and her sister Suzanne. So that was lovely.
How nice. How nice. Well, this has been great. I hope you have a great weekend there, and lots of good sales going on, and a lot of fun in your shop. So
thank you so much. So we'll be here for a little bit longer, and of course we'll be here tomorrow and continue all our sales and giveaways and stuff like that. This afternoon, what time is it? Probably in another 30 minutes or so, we'll do the drawing for the scan and cut machine. So we'll probably do that on our Facebook Live. So we'll do that on Facebook Live, that drawing.
And that's a drawing for people that are in the store, correct?
They don't have to be present. They have to have come, though. So they do have to have shown up
Very good.
to get their name in the hat. And we'll do the scan and cut tonight. And then tomorrow we'll do another scan and cut and the 1750 machine. So,
great. Wonderful. Those are great prizes.
Good. And I'll let Kim say goodbye too. Kim's been very patiently monitoring.
Hi, Kim.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Have fun.
Thanks.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and look for more from us at Sweet Time Quilting or Quilts and Lace. And Joanne, thank you so much.
You'll find me on letsgosew.com. So actually, if you, you know what, give me 1 second here. I'm going to go ahead and paste in
Oh, good.
the link for the tutorial on the walking feet and the digital dual feed foot. Let me
And
go
my
ahead and-
original one that I had your Let's Go Sew and I had all this stuff on there, but this one I kind of quickly entered.
all right. I don't see where I can paste that into the chat. So we'll put that, maybe you can put that in an email that you send out and people can link to that.
Okay, or I can post it here too. Is it a long, complicated one to type?
It's long. Yeah, it's long.
Okay. All right. We'll get it to you either by Facebook or by email.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Or I can probably post this later on here too. So send me an email with those links, Joanne, and I'll post it in here.
I will do that. I will do that. All right.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you,
Happy
everybody, for watching.
sewing.
All right. Bye, guys. Coffee, got any questions?
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If I want to put them someplace else, I can do that.